oak and antler. I have red oak stave that I got online, and then I've been finding moose and caribou antlers, so I'm going to try and make the tip overlays, an arrow rest, and maybe even the handle section out of a piece of antler. The first thing I need to do is remove the sapwood because the sapwood is cracking on this stave. I've been told that oak can make a really nice bow, and I believe it. But something that I've come to appreciate about working with birch and hickory is how smooth they are, and oak is the opposite of smooth. This is the chunkiest, gnarliest wood I've ever worked with. It's like trying to carve a rock with a sharp knife. It just doesn't really work that good. And carving hickory, and birch especially, is like carving butter. Yeah, the butter is cold, but with a sharp knife it comes off like nice little ribbons. And this oak, it just isn't that way. You can see here the redwood and the whitewood. And I'm just trying to take the white down to the first layer red. It's pretty easy to see as I'm working here. You can see this lighter color around that knot, and then the red. And as you break through a layer, there's all of this kind of a braided early wood, is what that's called. You can see here's another spot where I didn't quite get it all. But once I get the whole bow down to the first layer of red wood, that'll be the back of my bow. It's important when you make these heartwood bows that the entire back of the bow is all one growth ring, because if you imagine wood growing like an onion, once you break through one layer of the onion, you've got a fragile spot that wants to peel away. Typically, I make my bows about 62 inches long, but since I want to go up in weight on this one, I'm going to leave a little bit of extra length. I want a pretty wide limbed recurve, so I'm actually not going to draw tapers at all. All I need to do is mark out the handle section and the thickness to which I'm going to make the limbs. Everything from here down needs to be removed. All the way to that line right there. I'm sure you can see how removing all of that wood with a draw knife would take a long time, but I've found some tricks that have made this process a lot faster. This is a Japanese pole saw. I'm just going to cut lines every 6 inches or so, and then I'll come back with a chisel and knock the pieces off. The fades are the part of the bow where the handle goes into the working limb. And it's important to have a real gradual fade, or else you make a stiff spot that's likely to break. So the thing that I found to make making my fades easiest is to draw the radius of a dinner plate. Now that I've got the basic shape going, I just need to rasp it down to the rest of those lines. As I get closer, I'll go to a finer grit on my rasp, or a finer tooth. And I realize that even though oak isn't a good draw knifing wood, it's a pretty good rasping wood. Usually the white woods gum up the rasp and I have to clean it, but this just disappears like sand, so I guess you just got to work it a different way than I'm used to. Right now I've got a 30-inch working limb. I think I'll start my taper 10 inches from the end. Now I'm boiling some water and steaming the bottom half of these limbs, and I'm going to put it in a recurve form. Recurving a bow, especially with a wood I've never used, is very risky, and I was really hesitant to go to too tight of a curve because I was afraid that it would crack on the outside of the bend. But I just took my time and used my heat gun, and it bent to the radius just fine. I like how the bends turned out. Nice slight recurves. What matters to me most is the side profile. I like that the way the recurves are. The only thing that's not great is that it's not perfectly straight. See, that one's a little bit twisted to the right. Almost every bow I've ever made from a tree has been twisted a little bit. So I'm going to boil water one more time, and I'm going to put it under that lower limb and then twist it back straight. I've heard to steam an hour for every inch of wood, so since this is about a half an inch thick, I'll steam it for a half an hour. Guess I'll just hang weights. Okay, it's cool now. Moment of truth. Let's see if it helped. Not too bad. I kind of wish I might have to do the other limb as well. I want these recurved tips to be static, which means that that will not bend. So I'm going to leave those extra thick and start tillering from where the curve ends to the handle. So all I'm really looking for at this point is that the limbs aren't too twisted. I don't have grooves on that side, so if I pull too hard, it'll come undone. What I have here is linnen. So this is 100% linnen, which is made out of the stem of a flax plant. But I think if I cut 2 strips off of this, I can overlay them at the handle. Now I just need to coat the whole back of this bow with glue. I'm going to do another coat of glue over top of this, and then that'll really cement it in here. Now this just needs probably half a day to dry, maybe a couple of hours. In the meantime, I'm going to cut up this antler. I think what I want to do is take one of these tines off and then split it in half, and then those will be my limb tips that hold the string. Okay, these are nice and flat. Now I just got to glue them on the bow. Now that this glue is dry and hard, I can cut it with my rasp. One of my favorite things about wood glue is that it dries clear, so it doesn't matter how much you put on top of the linnen, all you're going to end up seeing is the black. After the glue dried, I shaped the wood to fit the antler so that it would be a nice smooth transition, and I wanted to use the antler to strengthen the tips so that they could be extra narrow. This will help the arrows shoot faster. Tillering is by far the longest part of this process and the most boring part to film. All I'm doing is checking the bend, marking things that are not bending, taking off wood. I've discovered a couple of tricks. like using my pencil to mark on the wall where the limbs end when they're not bent, and then when they are bent, and then doing that to both sides and measuring the distance. Right now this one is bending about 1/2 inch more than this one, which is good because I prefer the way that one is bending and kind of want to leave it alone, but I'd like to adjust this one so that it's bending more towards the tip. Okay, 45 pounds at 28 inches. Now all that's left is shaping the handle. I already had a small piece of caribou antler cut from a different project, so I just cut it into a smaller piece and then drilled a hole for it to slide into. It didn't fit into the hole. The antler was actually kind of an oval, so I had to file it down into more of a circle so that it would fit inside. Then I put wood glue in the spaces between the wood and the antler and then filled that with sawdust. And now you can't even tell that there was ever a hole. It looks like the antler grew out of the wood. I'm shooting flu arrows with blunt tips. These are what I hunt rabbits and grouse with. First shot with the oak and antler bow. That shoots pretty sweet. I don't know if this is my favorite bow, but it's definitely up there. It's got moose antler tip overlays, a caribou antler arrow shelf, and linnen backing, all on a red oak bow. It's shooting about 45 pounds at 28 inches. Working with oak was a learning process. I couldn't use the same tools that I usually use. I almost build my bows entirely with draw knives, and this wood just didn't take to a knife very well, so I built the whole thing with a rasp. The only thing that's kind of funny about this oak wood is that even though it's as wide as my hickories would be and a little bit longer, it probably has more string follow than any of my other bows. Overall, I'd say that I'm pretty stoked with how this one turned out.